When I was a boy, there was this television commercial. I think it was promoting a cereal. It's not a very good commercial when you remember the commercial, but you don't remember the product. Somewhere somebody fucked up. It's my guess. Anyway, the commercial was on. It was a cereal, and it was based on these characters called the Freakies, and they're hiking through the jungle, and there's monsters. You can't see them, but they're there. You can hear them, and all the Freakies. They have this head Freaky, Boss Moss, I think his name is, and all the Freakies turn to him and say, "We're afraid." And Boss Moss, if that is his name, says in a kind of like a John Wayne voice, "I understand exactly how you feel." Everybody remembers John Wayne, right? Everybody knows John Wayne? Good. I don't know. My God, man. I'm old enough to be a grandfather now. I don't know what people remember. It's kind of scary, actually. Anyway, people are afraid. I think in this world, everybody, as far as I can tell, deals with fear. And the question is, why do we get afraid? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Let's just go through a few of them. Number one, superiority. The fact of the matter is, if you scare me, and I'm not talking about boo scare me, but I can go away and express to somebody else why I am afraid of you. That gives me a superior edge. That puts me in a place above you. And people, generally speaking, most of the time, like being above other people. It's one of society's more addictive habits, and it's never a good idea. Superiority number two, we are allowed to be violent. Once you scare the shit out of me, I consciously, subconsciously I allow myself to retaliate to potentially hurt you. Why? You have scared me. The name of this sermon initially, and I might write a different one eventually, but it was the eternal quality of fear. And what I mean by that, and maybe I'll get into it later, I'm not sure specifically, but essentially what I'm saying here is fear has been around forever. It has not evolved. It is still the miserable motherfucking thing that it's always been, and is there to hurt us, to destroy us. Fear is the enemy of your soul. Why are we afraid? It makes us superior. It allows us to be violent. I had a friend who was addicted to adrenaline. And that's number three, adrenaline. And what I mean by an adrenaline, does anybody here know what an adrenaline addict is? An adrenaline addict is somebody who when they're in a state of anxiety, that's when they're happy. I mean, they don't know they're happy, and they're not really happy. It just goes to illustrate what kind of fucked up mindsets we can embrace for ourselves. But this particular friend of mine, he was only content when his world was falling apart. Once in a while, he would claw his way out of debt, and the first thing he'd do is spend $20,000 and put himself back in a position where he was in a very, very anxious state. Okay, this is not good. Does anybody think? My God, it's so crazy. Like the mechanisms we develop so we think our lives are going better. Like almost every idea we come across, it puts our lives in a worse shape. And it doesn't seem to matter to the human species. If it makes sense on an emotional level, it doesn't matter. See, here's the difference between smart people and stupid people. Smart people use their smart brains to justify any fucking thing at all. Stupid people use their stupid brains to justify just about any fucking thing at all. Ultimately, what happens? It's the same thing. The only difference is nobody's going to admit it. And nobody's going to admit a whole lot, unfortunately. And if everybody would admit something, the world could actually start coming together in a good direction. Why are we afraid? Superiority. We get to be better than people because these scare us. Number two, we're allowed to be violent. They're a threat to me. I remember when I was 12 years old, my mom and I got home from vacation a day early, and this guy actually broke into our house, and we saw the light turn on, and my mother yelled, "Stu!" And why she would do that to a 12-year-old boy, you know, I don't know, but that's what she did. She yelled, "Stu!" So I got my knife. I had a hunting knife. And I went through the house looking, and we heard someone run down the stairs, so he was obviously gone. And my brother was living downstairs at the time. So I searched the house to make sure there's nobody there, that he's gone, and then I went to see my brother. And I walked in his room. Steve was basically asleep. I said, "Steve, someone broke into the house." Steve just looks at me like this. Good. And he pulls back his pillow and takes a gun from underneath his pillow. And so Steve and I began to search down this prowler who had obviously been gone by that point. But anyway, that's a great illustration to kind of like sum up my brother. He was one of a kind. Why are we afraid? Superiority, allowed to be violent. Adrenaline, don't have to think. These primal emotions. One of my favorite shows is Primeval. It's about these guys that go back through these kind of porthole things into the land of dinosaurs. Or basically what happens actually is the dinosaurs come through these porthole things, and their mission, and they do a very good fucking job, I must say, is to plug these things up and make sure the citizens of Britain do not discover that they're being invaded by dinosaurs. And there you have it. You know, you have these primeval, these lizards, these reptiles, not to be confused with one of my heroes, Lizardo Reptile. Now, all of you are too young for that, I think. And you see this violence, this unequivocal violence. You see, you know, like there's not a whole lot of difference between 20 million years ago and now. It's the hunter and the hunted, and it's a primal state of being. And maybe I mentioned this last week in the sermon. Maybe the world is just beginning. Like, we're definitely not in the middle of something. Making a long story short, because I explained it last week, we're definitely not in the middle of something. Either this thing's about to go tits up, pardon the expression, or maybe it's just beginning. Maybe 100 million years is just nothing. And in 200 million years from now, the primal behavior of the hunter and the hunted, the Sasquatch and the human, the polar bear and the penguin, maybe you know, there's a verse in the Bible about someday, you know, the lion will lay down with the rooster or something like that. Lamb. I knew it wasn't the rooster. Oh, I know my roosters. I just had chicken for supper. Which, again, yes, I know it's not a rooster. Why are we afraid? Superiority, allowed to be violent. Adrenaline, don't have to think about shit. Heaven forbid. Easy to find allies. That's another reason. Now, there's lots of reasons. These are just only 5 I'm looking at this point in time. But you know as well as I know that when people are threatened by other people, people go to war. Like I saw this movie recently about these people who went to the Vietnam War or some war over there in the middle of nowhere. And they came back and they were lonely and lost. And all they wanted to do was go back because they had this community. The war brought them together. And it shows you when you get away all the shit, you take away all the shit and the delusions and the crap, what's left with humanity is they want to connect. They want to connect. People want to connect. But for whatever reason, that desire to connect is so paper thin. You know, anything, and when I say anything, I mean anything, can destroy it with most people. You know, and that's why what we're doing here, in a sense, is is so phenomenal. And maybe even groundbreaking. I mean, Jesus didn't have a good time with his disciples, you know. They weren't very peachy at all. One betrayed him. Now, I know he only had 3 years. That's another thing. You look back at the Old Testament, why did Jesus only have 3 years to develop community? In case he just can't do it. He's God, and he couldn't do it in 3 years. You had people betraying him. You had people running away. You had every fucking thing going on. You had somebody, you know, got him strung up on a cross, for God's sake. No pun intended. People are drawn together because of fear. They have a common enemy. I wrote this sermon recently called The Village, and it's based on the movie by M. Night Shyamalan, The Village. And in this particular sermon, which I am not preaching for a while, I do not think, but one aspect of the sermon is people think there's a monster attacking these people, and there was no real monster. This was choreographed so people would come together, would develop community. It's a pseudo way of making community, and it actually works. So why are we afraid? Okay, dynamics. 7 dynamics of the progression of fear. Number 1, primal fear within. Okay, we're born this way. We are born with primal fear. We are born scared shitless. You know, you look at a baby, and I saw this video by this group. That group, the kids that are very self-destructive. Management, MGMT, management. Yeah, I saw this video, and they have this little baby, and this baby is being taken for a walk, and there's all these monsters. And the baby is just freaking out. Now, I'm sure in real life this did not happen. They didn't freak out this poor kid. But it's a good metaphor for not just babies, but the human condition. We are scared shitless. You know. And to make matters worse, we're in an environment that's completely unsafe. We really are in the land of the lost. You know, we may not have dinosaurs, but we have some serious shit that could destroy us at any second. And like it or not, this is playing on our heads right now. And it will tomorrow, and it has yesterday. Dynamics, primal fear within. Number 2, it is justified, embraced, cultivated, and treated as God. The very enemy of our soul is not only a part of us, but we cultivate it. And we nurture it. And this is not a good thing. Number 3, stimulus happens. A fearful situation. So basically, we've been training for the Olympics in reverse. Okay, you know what I mean by that? We've been training, we've been nurturing, we've been cultivating our fears. And then what happens is we're in a situation where we need to be brave, where we need to respond fearlessly. And what do you think happens? You know, that training didn't go to waste. It'll rear its ugly head. Number 4, fear promises defense, security, and justice. But number 5, fear delivers a big fucking mess. Okay, let's go through this again. Number 1, primal fear within. Number 2, it is justified, embraced, cultivated. Number 3, stimulus happens, a fearful situation. Number 4, fear promises defense, security, justice, but it does not deliver. Number 5, it delivers. What it does deliver is a big fucking mess. Number 6, the justification bit begins, often rather accompanied with denial. Okay, here is the point where we could potentially be looking at things, but what happens? We justify, we deny. Okay, we blame. We have all these mechanisms. This is one of the things I just love about organized religion, is they give you all these mechanisms, all these rituals, all these God knows what, to basically hide your soul, to hide it from God, to hide it from healing, to hide it from the potential of fearlessness. And then it all goes to shit. Number 6, the justification bit begins. And number 7, we move on and we've lost part of our soul. Maybe we've lost a relationship. One thing I've noticed in regards to relationships and fear is fear has so many different ways of destroying relationships. For example, paranoia is fear. What happens? You have cultivated your paranoia. You have justified your paranoia. You've let your paranoia have life. You have not dealt with it. Then you go into a relationship, and what do you expect is going to happen? You've basically just built a fucking A-bomb and put it inside yourself, and somehow you think it's going to work out. It is not going to work out. You need weapons. You need the weapons that we've been learning here, essentially, to deal with this fear. See, that's another, again, back to religion. They'll try to cast your fear out. Your fear ain't going nowhere. Your fear is part of your fallen nature. Your fear is from the Adam and Eve scenario. And it is going to stay there. What you can do is learn how to deal with it. It's just like if you have a pet orangutan. Well, guess what? You better fucking feed it. You better nurture it. And you better make sure you don't step on its tail. They don't have tails. So that's the easy part. Dynamics. Number 1, primal fear within. Number 2, it is justified, embraced, cultivated. Number 3, stimulus happens, a fearful situation. Number 4, fear promises defense, security, justice. Number 5, fear delivers a big fucking mess. Number 6, the justification bit begins. Number 7, you move on and life is a mess. If people traded their fear in for promiscuity, people became promiscuous instead of fearful, they would probably do a lot better. Am I endorsing or condoning promiscuity? No, I'm not. Fear is the opposite of love. And in this universe, just about as eternal. You have a choice to make. You will flourish or your fear will. 7 dynamics. Number 1, primal fear within, just like the first list. Number 2, it is discerned, not embraced. Okay? There it is. You can embrace it, allow it to eat you away, get on your knees and worship it, or instead you can discern it. In other words, I see what's going on here. It is fucking bad. Okay, these things are very similar, right? One can potentially ruin your life, and another one could potentially save your life. Number 3, a fearful situation. Number 4, met with community, forgiveness, love, prayer, patience. Okay? We are meeting fear with things that are going to resolve the situation, with things that are going to actually make us healthier as people. And as we exercise these weapons, we become stronger people. Our fear does not go away. I mean, some people have been delivered supernaturally of fear, but even then, I will guarantee you, they have other fears. I don't understand why some people are instantly healed of shit, and other people have to be burdened with certain things for the rest of their lives. I will tell you this, however, there is a fucking reason. And just because I don't know it doesn't mean it's not there. There's a reason for everything. Usually the reason is because we fucked up. It's very simple. But regardless, there is a reason for everything. Number 5, struggle to make it work, okay? This is the thing that people don't like, and this is away from the religious thing. We go to our motivational speakers, and they don't say struggle to make it work. They have 12 steps or 10 steps or 8.5 steps. And you look at this and you read the book and you're thinking, man, that's really fucking great. All I have to do is these 11.5 steps and everything's better. Well, it's not going to happen that way. Trust me. We struggle. We struggle with our spirituality. Jesus struggled with his spirituality. He was in the desert for 40 fucking days. You know? I guess in a sense, you know, I'm a clergyman myself, and I was in the desert for 2 years, and I don't think that was a coincidence. We struggle to make it work. Things slowly come together, not easy. And move on, gain part of your soul. See, these horrible things, these fearful battles we get within ourselves and with the people we love, these things, if dealt with properly, will help us not only in the relationship, but they will help us to grow and become, you know, more well-rounded spiritual, emotional individuals. Let's go through the list one more time. Number 1, primal fear within. Number 2, it is discerned, not embraced. Number 3, a fearful situation. Number 4, met with community, forgiveness, love, prayer, patience, and other such things I'm sure you're aware of. Number 5, we struggle to make it work. There is no easy answer. Number 6, things slowly come together. And number 7, we move on and we've gained part of our soul. We've added eternity to our idiom, to who and what we are. And in some ways, our life becomes just a little bit more enriched and better. Amen.